Now, this particular segment is called Bloodlines, Banks, and Bullets. So instead of the big, big, beautiful bill, right? We're going to call ours that, okay? And it's also about they didn't just take out these presidents, they eliminated obstacles to the real ruling structure. And like I said, we're going to talk about that pretty much. So the first thing we'll get into is to say, what if I told you that Lincoln and JFK didn't lose their lives because they failed, but because they refused to kneel? And you're going to see a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about, some comparisons, some stories, and everything else. Now, there is a myth that they manufactured right out there. They said that we were told, or how we were taught, that these men were loved. They tragically struck down by a madman. But the deeper that I went with this, and the more that I see this, you're going to see that they would purge. They was really purged by ancient banking priesthood hiding behind the flags and ballots. And you're going to see a lot of connection between the two. But then there's going to be this gematria connection, so to speak, this unusual things that make you go, but then it's like, wow, coincidence, right? And you know how I feel about it. Coincidence is God's way of being anonymous. And we'll go into that. So if you have ever had any speculations about the two, especially JFK that happened here in Dallas, and then, of course, Lincoln, I would love to hear your perspective when we do the call in tonight. And I think it'll accept one call at a time, the way it's going to happen. But again, we're going to be doing this, and so we're going to make this eventually what I've been hoping for. I've been waiting on this about 30 days to get this equipment to hook to it. That I want to start doing a call-in show, so that when we go live, people call in, and in some cases we can talk about other stuff, as long as we kind of go where we're going to go with it and keep it all within tune of what we have. One thing I asked is that you kind of don't use some bad language. And there's a lot of words and things that we can't say. If you're going to talk about somebody leaving here, say they was unalived or whatever, stuff like that, and just be cognizant to the conversation and how they monitor these things from there. So if y'all are ready, we'll get into it, and let's start the conversation from there. And don't forget to hit the like button as we continue. Now, when you start thinking about the patterns of elimination about these two, and I have a picture of how we're going to see them as we go down. This is Kennedy, and then you're talking about JFK. Lincoln defied the central bankers by issuing what they call a greenback. JFK challenged the Federal Reserve System with an executive order 11110. Both attempt to restore the sovereign money, and both were taken out not just by men, but by a machine that feeds on disobedience. And we're going to lay out our thing tonight, our conspiracy of it all. And like I said, it's just something that that we ran across, or I put together and read over times. And I just thought it started to be a little, just for us to talk about from there. So the thing that I want you to really look at it, if you rise against the financial bloodline, and we know who they are from being here on the show. We already know who they are. They won't just take you out, they'll immortalize you. And also so that the sheep, which is the people that follow them, is going to mourn while they clean up the everything. And that's the problem, reaction, solution that we talk about when we go there. But a couple of things I want you to think about, but as we get ready to put a couple of things on the screen and just go deeper into this conversation, is that the real currency that when we look at it today isn't money. The currency that they really bank on is compliance, right? This is why we talk about truth versus authority. We look at it, but if you think about Lincoln and JFK, they tried to print what we call resistance, and they paid for it. Yeah, they really did. And we will go over that. So if you're looking at it, that a president is not just the most powerful person in the world, he is the most visible hostage, I will say, to the power behind the world. Because as you know, they're not running things. You truly know that they do have power. However, there is another situation that goes down, that there's other people that pulls the strings. Because if you think about the military industrial complex, all of these things that the president is not, what's the word I'm looking for? The presidency is probably temporary, right? Even when you look at the military industrial complex, they're around for quite some time. They really are. And they're around 30 years while the president comes and go. And those will be the things there. Make sure you hit the like button here, share it, and we're going to see how this is going to flow so we can go into that. But another part of this is bloodline control doesn't need elections. That's how they already said that everything was planned. They need martyrs, and they strategically time everything. So when you start looking at, I got some notes and stuff that I want to go here, and I'll kind of start it out. There are two things happen. Of course, I'm gonna give you the breakdown real quickly. When Kennedy, it was the afternoon, November the 22nd, 1963. President John Kennedy was taken out as he rolled into a motorcade through Daly Plaza here in downtown Dallas, where I live. And of course, by the fall of 1963, John F. Kennedy and his political advisors, they was already preparing for his next presidential campaign. Now, when you want to compare that to Lincoln was taken out and was a result of a conspiracy of a powerful international bankers. This was a theory that Abraham Lincoln was taken out as a result of a monetary policies at the time, and John Wilkes Booth would be seen as a hired gun, and it's the simplest term, the theory there. So now that just set the two foundations. Where this is going to get real creepy is once we start going down a lot of things that had happened in this scenario and where it's been taking us from there. And I think it's just really interesting to really go through the conspiracy of this. Now, the other part of this, what they say, and the word on the street, was that both of these men were taken out after proposing monetary reform after the Rothschilds control system. Okay, so we're going to leave it right there. They also says, what do the Freemason rituals and removal about striking down disobedient kings have to do with it? So let's leave that question out there. And also, did both of these people again taken out because they served as what they call blood seals to maintain the Federal Reserve System? Now, this is just basic conspiracy stuff. What we're going to talk about is things that I think that goes a little deeper when you begin to think about some of the things that were going on back in the day of doing this. Now, for starters, when you think about it, let me put this on the screen and we'll go through some of this real quickly and just jump down into it. All right, so right now, and I want you to kind of post your comments. Listen to this, and I'm going to go over this again later into the show, but I'm just going to throw it out there right in the beginning, and I'm going to put up a picture of both of them again just to kind of set the tone or where we're going to go right here. And then these are the people, each one that took each one of those people out, and you can kind of go from there. All right, so just look at what we're going to talk about. Let me see if this even works the way I'm hoping it does, where it will give us a layout of both. I thought it would, but don't look like it. It will. Okay. All right. So I was trying to figure out if we can get this. So here's some facts that I want you to think about. Abraham Lincoln, all right, if you hear me, was elected to Congress in 1846. I want you to write that date down in your mind. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946, exactly 100 years apart. And you might say, well, Roderick, okay, 100 years. That's just not it. Let's go with just a little more things. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960, 100 years apart. I mean, could that be something strange? And maybe, what do y'all think about that? And I got more just to kind of put it out there, but, just those two coincidences got me to start looking at things a little deeper. Both of these people were shot in the back of the head in the presence of their wives. Both wives was present with them when this happened. Lincoln was there, and of course we know the scene of his wife on in the car with him in the motorcade, and so that was one of those things. Now, because they say history repeats itself, and the way it goes, both of these wives John F. Kennedy wife and Lincoln wife, they both lost children while they was in the White House. Both of them, okay? And so that was weird enough. And when you start looking at that, so again, Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946, 100 years. Lincoln was president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was president in 1960, 100 years. Both were shot in the back of the head in the presence of their wives. Both lost children while they was in the White House. And check this out, both presidents were shot on a Friday, okay? If that wasn't enough. So what do y'all think thus far? Because I got a few more things I want to tie into it. Now, it said, though, that Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. And I'm like, okay, that's an odd fact, just to be throwing it out there. However, it's worth knowing. And both of them were succeeded by a Southerner named Johnson, okay? So both of them were, when they were taken out, a Johnson took their place. Now, when you start thinking about that, it gets a little creepy, right? When you're saying, wait a minute, what's the coincidence of this happening where both of them is 100 years apart, both of them wives, was there, both of them was shot in the back of the head, both of them were, a Johnson took them over from there. Now, it gets even deeper. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808, okay? Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. So isn't that wild, right? Think about it. Johnson or whatever, Andrew Johnson, who took over for Lincoln, because both of them was taken over by Johnson, was born 1808. And then Lyndon Johnson, who took over for Kennedy, was born 1908. I mean, what's going on with that, right? I mean, I think that's wild, right? And when you start looking at it, now think about this one. Lincoln was shot in a Ford theater, and Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln made by Ford. So I thought that was just like, okay, we'll throw that in there. But also, Lincoln was shot in a theater, and his assassin ran and hid in a warehouse. Okay, when all this was done, Kennedy was shot from a warehouse, and his assassin ran and hid in a theater. You can't make this stuff up, right? You can't make this stuff up. You get what I'm saying? When you start looking at these things, and then both of their assassins, Booth and Oswald, was assassinated before their trials. Both of them went out. So when you think about those things, it gets you a point to say, wait a minute. Remember how we talked about the Illuminati has this way of seeing the future, the past, or the way they say things were like rewritten, or there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new, the way they kind of look at things and pretty much. And so it's kind of wild when you start thinking about, those particular coincidences and everything else. And again, I'll go back over just really quick, just from the top of the beginning, for a couple of people maybe who just jumped in to see that, wait a minute, both of these people. So I'm going to put them on the screen and as we go there. So we got Lincoln and we got President Kennedy. Now, once again, Abraham Lincoln on the right was elected to Congress before he became president in 1846. John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress in 1946. Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960. Both were shot in the back of the head, and both wives was there when it happened. Both lost children while they was in the White House on both sides of the fence. Both presidents were shot on a Friday. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Both of these people, after they were assassinated, were succeeded by somebody from the southern place named Johnson. So Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born 1908. So when you start looking at those type of coincidences, it does get you to wonder, is that pretty? Anybody think that's pretty wild? Put it in the chat, because those are things that I thought was pretty wild and pretty much for now. But anyway, like I said, we're going to do a call-in show, and you can call in. I want to test the new system. just one at a time when we do this. And so you could, in the best way to do it, let me make sure I have what you can do to get on the screen to call in. Basically, you can pick up your phone device and you can go to the website there, www.callme.road.com. And then on the screen is going to be a simple box, and the box is going to tell you enter the code, which is what you see there to the right is 3P38SK. And then once you do that, it's going to tell you to put in your first name, but I want you to put in your first name and where you're from. Don't put a username. If you don't put a name, I'm not going to accept it, but put where you're from so we can develop our call-in show. It says, welcome, TT from New York, okay? So we want to begin our process of getting that done. Eventually, I'll have multiple lines for that, so we're going to test it tonight. And like I said, you could come up on the show and do that. I think it was going to take one call at a time, and even though I'll see another caller, it may just keep you in queue, and then when I get off with the other one and push it, it'll accept you to come on in from there. But anyway, it was just going to bring you right in on your telephone, and you don't need to worry about your background and all that. I think it has the system is going to change all of that as we go. So I would love for you, whoever want to comment already on where we are, go ahead and come into our show. And so once again, go to the website there, www.callme.road.com, and you're going to use that code that you see right here on the bottom of the screen, the 6-digit code, and it's going to bring you into my switchboard automatically doing it. It'll let me know when you do that. So anyway, until we get our first caller tonight, that's going to discuss or just chime in on what we're talking about, we'll continue. So when you think about that, Lincoln was shot in a theater and JFK was filmed in broad daylight. Of course, you remember that. The only thing changed was the stage. Everything seemed the same. It's like somebody knew the future and they knew how to write the script and they just repeated it, right? I bet you if we start looking up things real closely out there, there might be a lot of stuff that are repeated constantly that may be the same thing that's been happening over and over, because once again, nothing changes. It's kind of weird when you do that. Once again, we were told that this was chaos. We was talking about, okay, maybe this was some lone wolves or history randomness, but everything about their death screams choreographic, right? I mean, think about it. Again, both of them 1846, 46 is, as Congress, both of them elected president exactly 100 years apart. Both of them go out the same way. Both of them, Wise was there when they went out. Both of them was replaced by Johnson, and the people that replaced them the same 100 years apart, as far as when they were born, almost like the story, and just really, really crazy. Now, the other part of this, when you start thinking about it, that all of this it goes into numerology, right? It's heavy dose of numerology when we start looking at this thing from there. All right, so let me know if anyone going to call in with us tonight. Otherwise, I'll take it down until we get, someone that wants to call into the show, and we will do that as well. And all right, so anyway, I'll leave it up again. Go to the website, put in a queue from your phone, and then you just put in that code, and then you hit connect. It'll bring you into our system automatically. Just make sure it tells you to, your mic and all that. It's going to get more access to your microphone, and you can just do that. And also, once again, you want to put in a name up there, and then just put a name and where you're from, first name and where you're from, and then we'll just kind of go from that. And whatever your first name is, you just put it there. All right. So, why do we look at this thing? We look at it because JFK was taken out by Lee Harvey Oswald. He was an ex-Marine, but also a MK Ultra student or file or person or whatever you want to call it. Remember, he had ties to the CIA and also to the Russian psyops. So there you go. When you start looking at, all right, the conspiracy of this thing, plots thickens every moment you start getting into this more and more and more. And it makes you wonder what is really truly happening when you go there. The other part of this is each one of these played a role in what we consider, especially how we talk about rituals and blood rituals and things that are happening. This was a blood ceremony to encode mass fear into the population. Because remember, at this time, these people were donned as heroes. And if you want to shake up the masses, you take that out. And when people think, okay, the most beloved, protected person in the world. Now, we did have the UFO stuff to Marilyn Monroe and all this stuff that was tied to JFK. But when you think about them saying, hey, we're going to take this out, then now that leads us to a whole different ball game once things began to not just settle down, but show its way through and pretty much give us this conversation that we're having, going like, okay, what was really happening and how did this close? Also,